One of the new hobbies that I've taken up during the pandemic in 2020 is options trading. And of course, anyone who trades options knows that you got to have some kind of tracking spreadsheet or tracking software to keep track of your trades. Not only to keep track of your profit and loss, but other fun things like, maybe you want to track return on capital. You want to go back and see which strategies were effective, which weren't. You want to have notes about the trade and kind of a journal about why you did what you did in a specific trade. This spreadsheet that I've created allows you to do all of that and more. And I've worked really hard on getting this to a state where I find it enjoyable to use, it's easy, straightforward, and it works for me. And so I thought it would be a good idea to share it with you. Maybe you can take some inspiration from this for your own tracking spreadsheet. So let's start with a quick tour. Let's look at these columns across the top. The open, date, expiration date, close date, number of days in the trade, the symbol, the action, the strike price, the quantity, the price filled, the price closed at, how much collateral was locked up during the trade, profit and loss, return on capital, annualized return on capital, and then a column for notes. Now, let's go through each of these columns in more detail. The open column is simply the date in which the trade was opened. Every options trade is going to have an expiration date, and when the trade is complete, you can indicate the date that it was completed in the close date column. And of course, just like any of these columns, they're all sortable and filterable. So typically I'll have this sorted by the date open. I find that to be the most useful. You could say the date is before November 1, 2020. Now it's filtered all the way through the end of October. Now let's remove that filter. And you could do the same thing, filtering, sorting by expiration date, close date. If you're trading over multiple years and you want to look at trades only in a certain year, or you want to see how you did in a specific month, you can do that easily by sorting by close date in the same way. You could say in the past month, in the past year, or an exact date. How did I do in the past week? Oh, there we go. Now I'm just looking at trades that closed in the past week. All right, moving along, number of days in the trade. That's interesting to know. Might as well have a column that calculates it. It's also used in calculating annualized return on capital here. Next, the symbol. This is really handy to filter if you want to just see a specific symbol and how you've done on it over time. Or you just want to isolate certain trades. I mostly trade Apple, so I've sorted by Apple, and I can see all my Apple trades. The next column is the action column. What I've realized is an action column is exactly what I need, because every trade, every event that happens has some action associated with it. What happened? Did I sell a put? Was there a dividend? Was there an iron condor sold? Did I hold on to a little bit of Chipotle stock for 16 days for some reason? Anyway, and this is really cool because you can then filter by the action. So if I just want to see how I've done only on calls, there we go. And if I wanted to further narrow it down to specific symbol, I just want to know how I did on solo. Okay, there's that. So one other thing I do want to show here. Here in row 85, you can see that I have an action of assigned. September 4th, I was assigned Apple at $130. So you can see ties back to this put that I sold for $130, closed on the same day. I was assigned. I have a place for that. It shows I have a negative number for the price I was filled at. And right now, there's no profit and loss showing. But I'm selling covered calls on that 100 shares of Apple. And as soon as that is called away, I'm going to enter in the close price here. And that's going to give me my profit and loss for that part of the trade. Let's just say I'm selling covered calls for $130 and it gets called away at that price. No profit, no loss. It's a scratch. If I were to sell them a little higher and it was called away at, say, $135, then it's going to show me a $500 profit. But since that hasn't happened yet, I don't have anything here in the closed column. And I have it set so that the assigned action is automatically formatted to be yellow, just using conditional formatting. So let me just show you here. If we scroll down to the bottom and I just type, anytime you're going to type assigned in the action column, it's going to be formatted yellow. And that's really nice because then as you're just scrolling around, it's easy to find that. The next column is the strike column. And of course, this is just the strike price with spreads or iron condors, etc. I'll put the different prices for the wings. And that's just for reference. It doesn't factor into any of the calculated cells. Quantity, typically I deal with one contract at a time, but if there are multiple, I could put that in here. Next column, price filled at, straightforward. At what price were you filled at when you open the trade. Sometimes if I'm rolling out or if I roll down, I'll add the extra credit received here to the fill column. So for example here, I'd rolled out a couple times or done some funny business with rolls. For example here, I guess I rolled once and added 2 cents to my filled price here. Anyway, okay, so now we're looking at the closed column, and that's the price that you closed at. If the option expires worthless, you put in 0. Oh, another thing about the action, another action you might have is a dividend. So this happened, I was assigned Apple and I was holding those shares, and I actually got their recent dividend payout. I got about $20 there, and I just put that in as an action. It's got its own row here, and I put in the dividend price and then close 0, and that just adds that as extra P to my P&L. Close column is going to be the close price along the price that you closed at, and if the contract expired worthless, then you just put 0 in the closed column. Collateral, so this is going to be how much money was tied up during this trade. How much capital did it require? How much capital could you no longer use because it was tied up in that particular trade? You're going to put that in here. So if it's an iron condor or a spread or something, you just put the width of the wing is going to be your collateral. If it's a put, it's going to be the full strike price times 100. If it's a call, I just do the same thing. I just put in the call, the strike price times 100. Profit and loss column calculated from the filled and the closed. And then I just have some conditional formatting. So if it's a positive number, it's green. If it's a negative number, it's red. If it's a scratch, it's black. Little Christmassy. It's just really easy to visualize and quickly see where you maybe had some losses. And I like the conditional formatting quite a bit. And there'll be nothing in the cell until you enter in that close price. So if I were to enter 0 here, then it would calculate my $96. As long as there's no amount in the closed cell, there's not going to be an amount showing in the profit and loss cell. Next column is return on capital, and this is calculated using the collateral column and the profit. So, how much did you return based on the amount of collateral that you had to put up there. And then the annualized return on capital takes that same number and also factors in how long you were in the trade. So in this case, 7 days, and it annualizes it. So if in theory you could be in this trade all the time throughout the year, how much would you make in 365 days? And in this case, it would be 59%. I mean, this is really theoretical. It's just kind of fun to calculate that. And then the last column is notes, and notes could be really anything. I often don't put any notes at all unless there's, it's just something unusual and I want to remember what happened, why I did what I did, what I was thinking. That's everything that goes on here in this part of my tracker. I do have another tab here to calculate my overall performance. So when I started this account, I transferred in $35,000. At that time, S&P 500 SPY was at $322.43. So I like to compare my performance with the performance of SPY just as a nice standard benchmark. And as you can see so far, SPY is kicking my butt, 13.73% versus my measly 8.21%. That's actually a really good return. It's just that the market happens to be on a tear. So tough competition right now. Annualized 21.72% versus 36% in SPY. Average days in trade, 5.7. It's just kind of an interesting thing to calculate. Since I am tracking the days anyway, it's easy to determine the average. How much money have I transferred out back into my bank account? What I was doing was transferring out my gains, on a regular basis to treat this more like a regular stream of income. The idea would be that, I would continue to have my $35,000 initial investment and then just pump out this cash. I have $1,309 available that I could transfer out and still be at my $35,000 level. Total P&L, and here are some notes about, when I put in my initial deposit and what the S&P 500 price was at that time. That concludes the tour of my options tracking spreadsheet. I am really, really happy with this now. I'm done tinkering with it for now. I'm just enjoying using it. It's great because I can track any strategy in this. For example, I've been doing a lot of the wheel strategy lately. If I wanted to, I'm not huge on tracking my cost basis, but if you wanted to go back and track your cost basis, you could do that quite easily. So if I want to track my cost basis on Apple, I'm going to clear everything, select Apple. For actions, I'm going to only show calls. So here I could say, well, how many, since I got assigned, how much have I made on selling calls against my Apple shares? And the answer is 514. I could also add in puts. And let's say I want to know how much my profit and loss on all my calls and puts on Apple. There it is, 1,715. If you want to go back and kind of do this reverse forensics after the fact, you certainly can do that. I've shown how you can filter by date, you filter by the action, the symbol. So you can really go back and get whatever information you need pretty quickly. And of course, the important numbers are always here on the options performance tab as sort of a dashboard. All right, cool.